A lot of times people are like accidents looking for a place to happen. They want a relationship, they want to get married, they're in a hurry, they'll overlook a lot of things just to say, I'm married.
Welcome to Love Stories, a relationship podcast for successful women, where we talk about love, dating, relationships, and how great love stories are made. Whether you're searching for the one, you're madly in love, or simply curious about romantic relationships, this podcast is for you. I'm Charlene Byars. Each week, you'll hear from women, couples, and experts, and all the ins and outs on how to create your own love story. I am so passionate about this subject, and I'm so excited to share all the things that you can apply to create a beautiful love story of your own. Cheers to great love. Welcome back to the Love Stories podcast. I'm your host, Charlene Byars. Happy new week. Welcome back. All right. I have a question. I was talking to a client this week, and she realized that she has been caught up in the busyness of life, and she has been feeling exhausted. Actually, in her words, she says, I am caught up in the rat race of life. So I asked her this question. When was the last time that you took real time for yourself? What I call self-care. And I'm not talking about the self-care in the sense of things that we have to do anyway for ourselves, like getting our nails done or getting our hair done or even a pedicure. That's not the type of self-care that I was talking about. I'm talking about doing something that really lights up your soul, something that you truly enjoy doing. For an example, one thing that I absolutely love to do that truly lights up my soul is salsa dancing. I'm Cuban, and I have been dancing salsa since I was a little girl. I don't even know how to explain it, but it truly lights me up. What about you? What lights up your soul? For an example, it could be listening to music or going to listen to a particular band, or it could be a trip to Hawaii that you've been wanting to take. You've been planning it, but you haven't actually made it happen yet. So I want you to think about what that is for you. And actually, I want you to make that happen. Allow yourself to be filled up with that type of joy. Often, we are so busy with life and all the busyness that we don't actually take the time to do the things that actually lights us up. This is your reminder. Whatever that is for you, I want you to really think about that. And not only think about it, make that happen and do that for yourself. Let's talk about the tip of the week, which is why dating multiple men is important. First of all, let's understand what dating means and what it's for. Dating is all about getting to know someone before you commit to them. Dating is an opportunity to get to know someone over time. And you are not in a committed relationship until a man asks you to be exclusive and you choose to say yes or no. You get to choose who you commit to. So here's the deal. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket because let's be real. When you put all your hopes and dreams on one guy that you actually don't even know yet, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Plus, you're missing out on all the other amazing men out there who could be a better fit for you. That's why it's so important to date and get to know multiple men. It's all about being smart and intentional about finding a right partner for you. When you date multiple men, you give yourself the opportunity to learn more about yourself and what you want in a partner. You can see what qualities you like and you don't like in a man, and what kind of energy you want in a relationship and how you feel around him over time. And the best part is that you don't have to put all your energy into one guy, so you're less likely to get burnt out or disappointed. Instead, you can enjoy the process of dating and meeting new people and end up with the right man for you. I am so excited to introduce my next guest, Bill Scalzitti, the coach for romance. After a failed marriage at a young age, he asked himself, Why does something that starts out so joyously crash and burn and rumble of heartbreak and disaster? And he set out to find the answer. After 25 years of research, leading classes, and interviewing single people, he developed a methodology that has proven successful for single people in finding the love that they've been looking for, but have been unsuccessful in finding. He calls his coaching program and related audiobook Romance by Choice. The program uses both music and spoken words as a dual learning modality. I'm not a matchmaker, Bill says, but a dream weaver. I work with what's going on inside people's heads and hearts that may be keeping them from finding the love that they desire. What I loved about the conversation that I had with Bill, that he's been on a mission to figure out why people have such a hard time in the matters of love. And after years of research, he figured it out. With no further ado, Bill Scalzitti. Well, hello. Hi, Bill. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
You're well. Yeah, I was really looking forward to this conversation today because I know you have so much to say about relationships and what you do. And I really was excited to hear your perspective and, and have this conversation. And I was just thinking, though, before we get started and I start asking all the questions, right? Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and kind of like what you do and how did you actually get into this field?
Okay, thank you. I'd be happy to. My name is Bill Scalzitti. I live in New Jersey. And I got into this business, many years ago after I had a failed marriage at a very young age. And I said to myself, how does something that starts out so joyously crash and burn in a rubble of heartbreak and disaster? And I was living in New York City, and I had access to lots of single people. And I would just ask single people when I met them, tell me about relationships. Was it good for you, bad for you? How did it go? All this stuff. And after a while, I even started running group sessions. It became obvious that there were certain similarities in almost every person's story. And basically what it came down to is that single people were never really taught anything about relationships. So everything that we know about relationships is what we've either seen or heard from our friends, family, relatives, television, movies. And we have all this stuff in our heads about, a man should be this, a woman should be this, and all this stuff. And we become teenagers, and then we start dating, and we're following all this information in our head, doing all the things, good, bad, or indifferent, that we were told this is what people do. And then you go from one to another, to another, to another, to another, until you find somebody that's not as bad as everybody else, and that's the one you marry. And then one of every two marriages fails, and worse than that, we have no idea of the 50% that don't fail. How many are just in name only? So I said, something has to be done about that. And that's when I started to put my whole methodology together. And back in 2006, I released an audiobook called Romance by Choice. And I use music as a dual learning modality to help create the emotional component. I have 6 musical albums that accompany the audiobook. And that's all to help the single people get their heads and everything together.
Kind of clear their heads. When you were, wow, this is wonderful. When you were like talking to a lot of single people, you know how you said you came to that realization? First of all, because you yourself, you said you had a failed marriage, things didn't work out. When you met your wife, how old were you at the time? Your first wife?
21 years old.
You were 21 years old, and that's kind of like, when we start thinking about it, looking, well, it depends. Everyone's different. I know usually we're kind of like, okay, let's see what's out there. So what was your experience in the sense of like, what did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about relationships that your takeaway after that marriage, didn't work out anymore?
Well, the first thing was that, you have to know who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, no one else is going to know. And then I had to think about, how do I choose to live the rest of my life? And when you're that young, that's quite a heavy question to have to deal with. And then, who do I choose to live it with? Because as I began to find all these things out, it was like, oh my God, there were lots of things that just didn't go together. And yet, you stay in a marriage until finally it just can't take it anymore.
You know what? That's interesting that you're saying that, because I love that you said you have to figure out, first of all, who you are. But how do we know who we are, right? Like, what is that? Like, when you're thinking about it in the sense of relationships, like, what exactly does that mean? Okay, like figure out who we are. And I always say too, I know I totally understand where you're coming from, is like, how are you actually participating in this relationship? How are you showing up? Like, is it in alignment with what you want? Because I noticed too, and I'm at fault for this. When I was in a relationship prior to my marriage now, I was married to my ex-husband for 23 years. And when I was married to my ex-husband, the way that Bill, seriously, the way that I look at relationships now, and the way that I look at myself, and the way that I look at things is completely different than I did before, right? And what I found out about Miss Charlene is I had a tendency to truly just look at my ex-husband's faults, not even knowing that I had all these faults too. And that's interesting, because we already had, Bill, that friction before we got married. But I really didn't know that, that I also, believe it or not, like, I'm just telling you the truth. Like, I really didn't know, Bill, that, that I was playing a part in this relationship. It's fascinating to me. When you started talking to these people, what were the common things that you also were hearing? Like, was it something like this? What were you hearing?
Also, it was things like, especially when you talk to people who were divorced. And, I'd say, how'd you meet your spouse? Why did it end? And you'd hear a lot of stories like, well, I wanted this person because, they were doing this, that, and the other thing and that, and I had to please my mother. A lot of marriages happen because we're trying to please our parents. Because our parents tell us, oh, when you grow up, you have to find this kind of person. And, and mom wants to brag about it. My daughter, my son's married this, blah, blah, blah. But that isn't necessarily what's going to make us happy. And we do a lot of settling and a lot of trying to fix people. And you can't fix people.
No, Bill, you can't change people.
Well, it comes down to knowing who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, no one else is going to know. And if you don't know who you are, you're going to try to be somebody you're not. And eventually, that comes to light. So those are the two biggest things. And then the third part was, knowing who do you choose to be with. And that's, people look at me and I say, what do you mean, who do I choose to be with? I don't know who I choose to be with. I said, no. Let's build the person. Let's talk about the qualities, traits, personalities, habits, hobbies, interests, all of these things that set relationships ablaze and ruin them. And I said, you got to be true to yourself. You got to know, okay, if I ask you a question about a certain issue, tell me the truth. Will you accept someone who has that quality or does that thing? Or, even if you talk about like hobbies, you meet someone who says, well, the guy likes to fish all the time. Okay, can you put up with that? If you say no, then why are you with him? Or if you say pets and animals. If you are allergic to animals and you meet someone who's a dog lover, well, that's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work. And that's, Bill, that's why this is why these conversations are so important. This is why you and I do what we're doing. This is why we are passionate about this, because Love and being in relationships, it is actually a choice. We get to choose who we decide to love.
Exactly.
And continue, and we get to choose who we decide to love, and we get to choose if we, want to continue on working on that relationship. We get to choose if we want to, right? Seriously, if we get to choose to look at ourselves and see how we're showing up. Because love is a choice. And I always say too, Bill, like I this is my line. I'm like, who you choose to be your life partner or who you choose to marry truly will determine your overall happiness. It really will. Because if you are not choosing someone, and you know this, Bill, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time and you're remarried and you've been married before, and you know this, there's no perfect relationship. And that's cool, guys. Like, come on, relationships will go in waves. That's just how life is, in stages and waves. But there is a huge difference in who you choose to be with for your life partner or marry than just taking it by chance. So I realize that a lot of people, is that what you found out, Bill, when you started, interviewing and talking and realizing that people just take it by chance? They're not even considering all these other things that actually come along in a relationship.
Right, exactly. That's why I call my program Romance by Choice. Because people have to learn to make a choice. And not be, a lot of times people are like accidents looking for a place to happen. They want a relationship, they want to get married, they're in a hurry, they'll overlook a lot of things just to say, I'm married. And again, that may be a lot of social pressure that's on them to do something. All their friends are married, but they're not. So they will do these things. And it's common. I mean, it's happened for centuries. I mean, it's not something new.
No. And you and I are in the business of helping people like truly have great relationships and choosing the right person and, and learning themselves. And when you were, now, when you talk to people, let's say for an example, a lot of our listeners, Bill, are women that, had to pretty much do life kind of on their own. They were in situations in the past. They might have been married before and things didn't work out. So they really had to put on that hat of, doing it all, providing for their family, working, doing this, doing that. And there, a lot of women have this, I don't want to say like this kind of like, gosh, is it really possible to have a great relationship? Is it really possible to find someone that we can actually, pretty much, have good alignment with that person. Like we have the same type of goals and values that we can work out. So what would you say for someone that is kind of on the fence? They're like thinking about, they're like, my heart is what I hear all the time. My heart really wants somebody, but I just don't know. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have such a great I didn't have a great relationship before. So when we talk about choosing, how would you slow that down? And what would it be the advice on
it comes from knowing, first off, how to date. People don't know how to date. Okay? And, when you've been dating someone for 2 months, 3 months, you already start to form certain attachments, which become hard to break. So you want to know as much about the person that you're dating as early on as possible. So you have to know how to date. You have to know even how to select the people that you're going on a date with. And that's based on where and how you find them. If you're using online dating, if you're meeting them in person, there's some general information that you want to find out kind of right away. And that's the first choice you're going to make. Maybe you meet someone, whether it's in person or online, that lives 5 hours away from you. Okay. Is that something you want to tolerate? Because how do you have an instant date on Wednesday night? You can't. Everything has to be planned. And, distance relationships are a problem. Now, some people have made them succeed, and that's great. But the majority of distant relationships usually don't work out.
No, they don't work out. And you know why they don't. I mean, explain why actually they don't work out in the long run.
Because you can't have that time together. There becomes the stress of, am I coming up to you? Are you coming down to me? I don't want to travel. I can't travel. The weather's bad. All these problems that come up.
Yeah, you got to be in proximity, Bill. Right? You got to be in proximity.
Right. And then there's the issue of, well, I can't move where you are, and you can't move around, maybe because of your job or other commitments you have in a particular area. Children from a previous marriage, you can't move there because you have an agreement with your ex that you have to stay in a certain area. All of these things. So why put yourself through the agony of having to go through that? If the
No, it's true. It sounds
far away.
If the person's too far away. Well, that's what is so important. I really want people to hear this, what I'm about to say right now, and what Bill's saying. When we are really looking for our partner and we're looking to be in a long-term romantic relationship. So I always say, Bill, I help women find their husbands. I'm not helping people find just hookups. They can do that on their own. They don't need me for that. So I'm good with that. So I truly, from the bottom, that's where I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about helping women find their husbands, period. And so for me, when I talk to women, like about dating and stuff like that, there has to be different type of intentions. And when we talked about earlier about knowing what it is that you're looking for and where are you looking, what are you doing, like you just said, like if we're wanting to have a husband and we really want to find our aligned partner, no, it's not going to be, you don't want to date a guy that lives, if you live in California, you don't want to be dating a guy that lives in Texas. And he has no interest of, moving, and you can't move. That's a great point. And to me, would you say then, like, what would be then another like really big thing that they need to look at that they're probably not looking at, Bill?
Well, there's a lot of factors. It's not just one big thing. It all depends on their personal situation. That's why every plan is kind of unique. Because again, if depends on what age you are, what you do for a living, you have children, you don't have children, been involved, been married, divorced, whatever. All of these factors go into what's happening and what your life is like. And you want a partner that's going to, and that's why I asked the question, how do you choose to live the rest of your life? Especially if you're a little older. Because you've already lived X amount of your life. Now you're at a point in your life where you say, okay, I want to do this with my life. I want to live here. I want to be this. I want to do that. When you know that, then like if your thing is, well, I'm living in New York, but I really want to live in California. My advice is get to California before you look for someone. Because again, you got the problem. I look for someone. I found someone in New York. We're doing great, but they don't want to move. What do? Deny yourself living in California? And maybe you're going to hold that against them. That's going to come up every time there's an argument. Well, I stayed here for you. And eventually the person's going to say, well, who told you to stay? And then you have all these arguments for no reason.
For no reason. Do you think then, do you see, like I said, working with everyone and kind of like talking to people and really having them, think about what actually it is, like you said, like what it is that how you want to live your life, what you're looking for. Where I find is that we don't ask enough questions. We just don't. And dating, to me, let me just explain my theory on dating. You can tell me what you think dating is. So dating to me is truly getting to know different people. So I believe if we are dating, in the first stage of dating is allowing yourself, to get to know different people, find out what it is that you are enjoying, because, not everyone's the same. And a lot of times we get stuck in our ways of thinking what we think we want. And it's not necessarily true. So for an example, a lot of women will be like, ooh, I only want a tall, dark, handsome man. Well, let me tell you something. The love of your life might not be tall, dark, and handsome. He might be a redhead man with a beard. I don't know you. We just don't know. Like, seriously. And I would like to say, like, when it comes to dating and what do you think, like, how do you explain dating to people? Because I explain it in the sense of, like I just told you, it's getting to know different people. You're not in a committed relationship with anybody until you decide you guys are, exclusive to be in a committed relationship. And I tell women all the time, Bill, we are not going to be exclusive with a man and just date. No, it's one or the other. Like, you're either just dating and you're not exclusive, or you're in an exclusive relationship. So dating to me is getting to know different people. What is dating for you?
Well, I mean, the process you're talking about, everybody really should go through it. So you can't just say, oh, I met Mr. X or Miss X. I'm going to stop seeing everybody until I know where this is going.
But they do, Bill, but they do. The women, like, seriously, this is how it goes down. And you know that. So they get on a dating app, okay? They're on a dating app. And they have a hard time, let's say for a while, matching with a guy. This is how it goes down. So they have a hard time matching with the guys, and all of a sudden they have a match. Like, someone there, they're kind of, okay, this is different than the other guy. Then they spend a lot of time on this dating app for a while, like, thinking that they're getting to know the person, okay? And they've never met this guy in person. We're basically talking about just someone in person. So then they go meet the guy in person, and usually this is how it goes down. The guy is okay. Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, it's not bad, it's not good, it's okay. Then women thinking, okay, well, he's okay, so I'm going to get to know him, so let me go ahead and get off the dating app. Then they go back, Bill, I kid you not, and get off the dating app, and they're putting all their eggs in one basket, just getting to know this particular guy. And you don't know anything about this guy until time. Time is how you get to know people. So I tell women, I want to know how it is when it comes to the dating. Like, first of all, I say, slow this down, slow it down. What would you say with the dating? Like, do you feel like they should date multiple people, or are you more like I just want to know your perspective on dating?
Well, I mean, I don't have a problem with meeting multiple people if there are multiple people for you to meet. The thing is, it starts from the very beginning. It's what you put online. Well, I write my descriptions for my clients. I okay their photographs, so I make sure their photos are really good photos of them. Okay? Now, you always hear, well, yeah, but I meet people who put up bad photos. I said, that's okay. I said, you match with someone. You swipe back and forth, you match with someone. I do not believe at texting at all. No texting. If I swipe and I like you and you like me, the next thing I want to do is have a Zoom or a FaceTime call with you. Okay?
We're in alignment, Bill. We're in alignment. Keep going. Yep.
That's it. If you refuse that, then I know you lied. So we're done. If we get on the call and you look like your photo and we have a little conversation and you've already read my profile, so you know what I'm looking for, because I write my profile differently than most people would write it. Most people try to sell themselves. I want to go hiking, biking, jumping out of airplanes, all that, which is a waste of time. So you write the profile correctly. So now I ask you a few questions. Like, one is the distance. Oh, you live 30 minutes from me? Great. Okay, that's what I had in there. So that's good. Okay? And then we find out a few more things. And then if some of the initial stuff that we're talking about goes for my positive list, then I might say, why don't we meet for coffee? Now I want to meet you in person. So now you know what I look like. You know something about me. Now we meet, and maybe we meet on a Saturday afternoon. Because if you don't,
Bill, you're speaking my language. Just when you just said right now, oh, I love that you said the coffee thing. Oh, yes, because I am so, like, this is really my jam when it comes to that coffee. Like, I always tell women, because I deal with majority of women, though. That's my, people that I'm dealing with. And when I do either, like, I help, single women or couples. But the majority of I coach is single women, okay? Single women. So this is awesome. When you said that we don't spend time online is like one of my 1000%. We are not, you don't get to know any guy online. You got to meet him. You got to meet him in person. You got to see who you're dealing with, right? And then I say, and before we go and think that we're going to go do this big dinner and all this stuff, you don't even know who you're meeting yet. You really don't know until you get that person. I said, there's nothing wrong. Matter of fact, it's the best to meet that person. Thank you for saying that. Keep it simple at a coffee. Just start with the coffee. And if you don't like coffee, it's okay. You can get a slushie, you can get tea, you can get water, you can get a soda. So it's not about the coffee, you guys. Seriously, it's not about the coffee. It's about, explain why we said that, Bill. Why did you explain why you're making it like that?
Well, number one, you want to do something that, again, you don't know the person. So you meet in the afternoon and you meet in a public place. Now, when you meet the person and you start chatting with them, if you like the conversation and you're getting a positive vibe about the person, then you can stay for as long as you wish, or you can go from there. If you're getting a weird vibe from the person, you can say, look, I have to go to the dentist. I have a dentist appointment. I have to leave. So nice meeting you. Goodbye. And you're done with it. And it didn't cost anybody money, because I've had people tell me stories where I went out for dinner with a guy and I didn't like him, so I told him I didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to leave, and he got all pissed off at me because he said, I spent all this money on dinner for you, and this is the way you treat me? Oh, okay, don't do dinner. Do a cup of coffee. What is it, $4 for a cup of coffee? Okay, so you get a cup of coffee, $8, $10, and you're done.
Well, like you said, Bill, but again, it really is positioning yourself, right, in a way that you are actually not wasting time.
Right.
And you're not wasting your time. Like, there's no, and again, remember what I said earlier, and I hope you believe that. And like, unless we're in a committed relationship, we don't know anybody anything. Like, it's you go meet the person. If you're not having alignment, you do not owe anybody anything. Right. I just hope that you're just a polite person, just say, hey, I gotta go. Didn't work out. Move on. Ladies, move on. Like, that's why I teach that. But
the same thing goes for both men and women. Because as a man, you might meet someone, go out and you don't like the way they show up, what they have to say, the things they do. You can end it right there, and everybody goes off on their own merry way. So, and then if it happens to be a really good meeting and you enjoyed it, you could make another date for another day. You could continue that coffee date. You might say, let's go take a walk in the park or something, and you can go from there. But you have your list of what is imperative, what is important, and what is a deal breaker. And if a deal breaker shows up, I don't care how many positives there are, one deal breaker, it's over. Okay? And
ladies, that's where you get yourself in trouble. No, Bill, listen, that's so true. This is where men too. Yeah. Like, when you really understand, like we were just talking about, like slow it down. That's my jam. Slow it down. Mm-hmm. When you really understand what you want for the rest of your life, what type of life you want to live, like what type of person you want to be. And if you are, remember, whatever you want and however you want someone to be with you, go ahead and be that person first. Seriously. So if you're like, I really would love a very patient man, that he's cool, that he has good communication. Okay, well, make sure that you're also a patient woman, that you know how to communicate, because it goes both ways.
Right.
Like, it just goes both ways. And make sure like you do that work for yourself. Take that time. This is so important. It is truly so important who you end up with, Bill. Like, that. Like, we both come from failed marriages. How is your marriage now?
Perfect. 23 years.
Nice. See, there you go. So he knows what he's talking about.
Well,
so
see,
I would definitely, you can say.
Another thing that I advise all my clients about is not to have sex. Most dating relationships go like, oh, let's meet for coffee, let's meet for dinner. You're having few laughs, because you're just concentrating on the fun. Everybody's in a hurry. And you don't know the motives of the people you're with. But it comes up, you wind up in somebody's apartment, you're having sex, the sex is good. Now that's all you think about. You forget everything else on your list, because the sex is good, and it takes several months for that to wear off, and you're done. Also, that's how people get themselves involved in scams and other things, because they're moving way too fast. And you have to have patience. When you're with anyone who's acting like an accident, looking for a place to happen, get out. I mean, it's, you hear stories. I've had men tell me how women come on to them and want to do. I said, well, and I've had guys tell me that they've been with women who have come on to them. They've had great times. They were beautiful women. And next thing you know, the women have some sob story about needing some money. And the guy right away, because he wants to be the hero, gives her money. And then she ghosts him and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I know. Bill, I love that you said that too, because I truly, with all my heart, based on, again, doing this work for so long, working with so many women, that I always say, listen, I'm not trying to put you in a sense of like these rules, but there are ways to do things. There really is. There's are ways to do things to get what you're looking for. And you got to have that type of way of looking at it, because like if you really are, let's say it again, if you really are looking for a person, you guys, I'm not talking about hookups. You don't need me for hookups. But if you're looking for a person to marry, to spend your life with, then there is a process on how to find out who that person is. And if that person's for you and you're all, excited about that person, hey, you can have sex later. It's okay. Like, why don't we get to know who that person really is first? See if you're in alignment with that person after time, because that's how you get to know someone, you guys. Anybody can say whatever they want to say. You know that, Bill, right? Anybody, I can sit there in front right now and say, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. But how are you going to know that's true? You're going to know that's true based on how I'm going to show up, based on if my words are really matching my actions. Okay. So if your words are matching your actions, right? And you're getting to know this person, save that for the juice. Woof. Because we like save that so you can really have that connection with the person. And why would we want to just have sex with someone? I'm sure, again, you guys, we're all adults here. Okay, honestly, we're all adults. If you choose to just go have sex with someone and not be in a committed relationship and just do that, you have a right to do whatever you want to do. Go for it. Go for it. Like, do that. But today we're specifically talking about how do we meet someone to be in a committed relationship and have true alignment with someone. That's what Bill and I are talking about today. There are ways. There's ways, and we're slowing down. There's ways that we have to look at ourselves, all the things that he's already said. There's a way to date. And you know what's so cool, you guys? Let me say something. There is somebody out there for everybody. And that's the best part. And just because you found, Bill, like just like me, I felt like I found love before. But you know what? I found it again. It's okay. Like, just because you've had it before doesn't mean you can't have it again. Right. Do you talk to people about that? Oh. Like you hear people say, oh, I was in love and I can never find.
No. I also, there's another thing too that people have to understand in relationships. And that's how men and women communicate with each other. We are two different animals, and we speak different languages. And if we don't understand the language the other one is speaking, we are always going to find ourselves at odds. And that's something that is, it's tough for people to understand, to get that message that, it's just a lot more to it. It's not just, hello, how are you? The way women talk to men, the way men talk to women, what men like to do, what women, it's all this stuff. When they understand that, they'll have a much better chance of having a happier relationship.
It is. I love that, because really, like, learning how to communicate, learning yourself, it's a skill. It really is. It's a skill set that anyone can do. Like, seriously, ladies, if you're like, well, I never had really great communication with men. Oh, but you know what? That's okay. That can change. You can learn that. These are things that you can actually learn. Because remember when he said earlier, when you talked about Bill, when you said earlier, the very first thing that you said is that no one teaches relationships. No one teaches communication. So we just kind of fall into whatever else it is. So there's things that you can actually learn. Absolutely. Things that you can learn that you can apply into your relationship. And I think that's so important as a mother of 4 boys. I'm not a man, I'm not a boy, but I feel that, I call it being in the trenches. Like, I've just been able to understand that we are completely different. And the way that I interact with my sons is actually different than the way I interact with my daughter. And that's totally fine, because, I speak woman and then I'll try to speak man, like, it's just different. And so I think that's been such a valuable tool that I've learned. I teach that, that kind of stuff, but that's important that you said that. And Bill, I want to leave it I want you to say something like this. I want to leave it like this. I want them to hear you. So if people are listening right now, and you wanted to leave them with some, and they're like, again, like I said earlier, they're like, oh man, I do really want to find a partner. I really want to find alignment, and I haven't had the best luck. And I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about, like what you and I talked about. I didn't even think about, like, what is it that I really want, or, I don't know. What advice will you give the listeners if they're hearing this conversation today? What's their takeaway?
Well, I would say this. There was a quote I had, matter of fact, I have it framed in my office, that says, today is the first day of the rest of your life. Now you get the right to choose how the rest of your life is going to go. And you can continue doing what you're doing and expecting a different result, which we know that's the definition of insanity, or you can choose right now to learn an entirely different approach to having the things in your life. And it all starts with a positive mental attitude about where you're going. And that's something that's vitally important. So you're where you are by choice. So you can choose to change that to some place you'd like to be. It's up to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic, Bill. So how can they get a hold of you? How can they get into your world if they wanted to, tell us exactly what you do?
Well, you can go to romancebychoice.com. All my contact information is there. You can read about the program. And I work with people from 26 to 70 plus years of age, whether they've never been married, divorced, widow, or widower. So as I always say, if you have a friend or relative that you want to see go from heartache to happiness, let them know about Romance by Choice. Thank you.
Love it. Love it. Okay, guys, you heard it there. So, definitely get into his world. He has so much to say. And, he's the real deal. He's an amazing man. And I just really enjoyed this conversation with you today, Bill.
I did also. Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed. No, thank you so much. Okay. So until next time, cheers to great love. That's a wrap. Wow. I just loved how Bill explained from the start that it truly matters who you choose from the beginning. That choice alone will determine the success of your marriage, and how important it is to know who you are and what you're looking for in a life partner. What a great conversation. If you're loving this podcast and all these incredible conversations, please hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. Don't miss an episode, because each week I'll be bringing on guests and experts who will share their knowledge about love, dating, and relationships so you can apply it into your own life. I'll see you next week. And until then, cheers to great love.